Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And the name of today's podcast is It a Rejection or a Redirection? And I've been thinking a lot about rejection lately, especially since both my parents are now living in an independent living facility in New Jersey. And when my mom moved in, she was really concerned about finding a card game and making new friends. And when we were talking about it, she said to me, I can't bear the rejection. And we had never had this conversation before. I guess I always saw her as social and she speaks to people really easily. And yet, faced with this situation, she was looking for a card game, but she was worried that she would approach people and they wouldn't want to play with her. So we had this long conversation, and I guess the conversation was a little shocking to me because I've experienced a lot of rejection in my life. And, I always managed to find a way to get back in the game, but I have a lot of rejection stories. So I started to share them with her. And it's so interesting. You think you're so close with someone, and she really wasn't aware of all my stories of rejection. And after going through it, the last thing I said to her was, rejection is often just a redirection. It's like the universe or life or something actually protecting you from something that's not supposed to happen. And even if you don't look at that, you could say that, well, when there's rejection, there needs to be redirection. So whether it's something protecting you or you're finding another way out, another way forward, either way, when rejection happens, there's a new place to be. But often what happens to many of us is that when we feel that rejection, we close down because it's painful. It's painful to be rejected by somebody romantically. It's painful not to get the job. It's painful not to get the agent. It's painful not to get the book deal. These all things could be so painful, but we take it all so personally. And because we take it personally, we let the rejection be a value on who we are, or a value on our work, or our value of our ability to get something done in the world. And what we forget is that the world is big and there are a lot of people out there, and the things we think that who we are, it's not for everyone, but doesn't mean it's not for anybody. And also the way we act is also for ourselves, the things we want to do in life. So we take other people's rejections personally, and then we stop pursuing our own path. And believe me, I get it. Anytime I've taken rejection personally, I don't move forward. Before I found this concept of maybe, I would really take things to heart. And then when maybe came into my life, I was able to apply it to everything, every type, a big rejection, a small rejection. And now I don't even think about it. I just always know rejection is a redirection. And that always makes me say, okay, this is not the time. This is not the moment where this is going to happen this way. So what else can I do? And of course, maybe does help, because you could sit there and say, well, maybe there's another way, and maybe I need some help, or maybe I need to wait, or maybe I need to be patient. So yes, maybe helps you alleviate any of the hurt or the fear or any belief that it can't happen a different way. But the idea of redirection really kind of also gets you there. So when my mom and I had this conversation, she actually, the next day, went up to a bunch of ladies who were playing cards. And she said, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I just moved into the building, and I'm looking for a card game. And sure enough, one of the women looked up with a little bit of a scowl on her face, and she said to my mom, we don't need anybody else. And my mom said at that moment, she felt like her heart kind of like tighten up. But then the other lady looked at her and said, on Wednesdays, there's a big group of people that get together and play Mahjong from 10 to 12. And as my mom walked away, instead of feeling hurt, she felt like, oh, that was a redirection. This wasn't my card game, and I'm being redirected. And sure enough, she now goes to the Wednesday morning game, and she's met people, and she's on her way to having her own game. And I know this is a very simple story, but in a way it's not. Because for my mom in retirement, this was something that was important to her to spend her days doing. But more than that, she was not pursuing things in her life that she wanted. She told me stories that she didn't become friends with certain people. She didn't pursue certain goals because when there was a no in front of her face, she just thought that, well, this is not going to happen. And we are so capable of so much in this lifetime. Every dream you have, every goal you have, it is real. But again, what's happening is that rejection could be hurtful, it could be painful, and we take it so personally that we judge ourselves that life can't be different. And we forget that if someone rejects us, it could be about them. It's about what they're looking for in their life. If you don't get the job, maybe they weren't looking for someone with your skill. And if you write a play or a book and maybe it gets rejected and maybe you need to work on it more, for all you know, life is going your way. But we're so busy taking it personally that we think, game over, we're doomed, we can't go back out into the world. And what's also interesting is sometimes what's happening is best and you don't even realize it. How many times have you spoken to someone who said, oh, I thought this was so terrible, but it turns out this rejection was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I actually was just with a girlfriend whose son did not get into any of the colleges that he really wanted to get into. And he was so upset and so devastated, and he ended up in a different college, and he is having the most amazing time. He is so successful. He's actually going for his master's at the same school. He is flourishing. It was the perfect fit. So you think life is going against you. You think rejection is stopping you. And yet sometimes it is just redirecting you to the exact path. And sometimes you need to find a different path. And again, I get this. I am the queen of rejection. My first book was rejected 45 times. And then it was published by Penguin Random House. My husband of 27 years rejected me. He left. But every time these things have happened, whether life was putting me in another direction or I had to keep another direction, I have learned that life is full of different experiences. And you don't need to think of better or worse because you don't have to measure one thing against the other. Life is a bunch of experiences, a bunch of moments. You dig deep and you say, okay, what else is life offering me in this moment? Maybe that wasn't for the best. Maybe I need to think of something else. But we are here. And because we're here, if we want to have the most open, beautiful, joyous, gorgeous, expansive life, it's our job. It's our job not to take it personally. And I'm not saying you can't feel hurt, but when I say don't take it personally, don't let it shrink you. Don't let it damage your goals, damage what you want to do in your life. It's our job to redirect. And sometimes we don't have to even do anything. Life redirects for us. So feel what you have to feel, but don't hook into the idea that this was what I needed for my life to be okay. Because that's when rejection takes you down. Because you don't know that. You don't know that the thing that rejected you was the thing that you needed to move forward. And you don't know there's not another way. And you have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. So use uncertainty as your best friend. Use it as an outlet. Use it as a place where you could slide into when rejection is making you feel bad about yourself. There's always a new personal relationship. There's always a new romantic relationship. There's always a new job. There's always a new opportunity. You just have to keep getting on that playing field of uncertainty. And you got to keep believing in you and believing in the unknown and believing in what you want and believing that rejection is a redirection. And just because it's not happening in the moment doesn't mean you're not going to find your way. You have what it takes to keep pursuing your goals. You have what it takes to process the pain or the sadness or the disappointment from your rejection. And you definitely have what it takes to redirect and find your way. Because until your last breath, you have maybe. Maybe what's happening is for the best. Maybe you could accept what's happening and find another way. And most of all, maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe or Year Without Men, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you could subscribe and leave a comment.